coffee, excuse me, waiter. But there's a ukulele in my coffee, I do declare. Cause it's breakfast with Bob. Cheers.
Thank you, Pacho Man. Welcome back, Breakfast with Bob from Kona at Huggo's on the Rocks. My name is Bob Babbitt, brought to you by Master Spas, SFuels, right fuel, right time, HOKA, Fly Human Fly, Deboer Wetsuits, Quintana Roo, and of course our Challenged Athletes Foundation. We now raised $180 million to keep challenged athletes in the game of life through sport. Our next guest, we go back just a few years.
Just a couple, yeah.
Mr. Mark Sisson, everybody.
Yeah. Thank you. Good to be here, Bob.
So, Mark, this was your first ever triathlon, 1981.
Yeah.
Here. No sprint, no Olympic.
No, had no prior experience with any triathlon. And a friend of mine, I don't remember Ian Jackson.
Very well.
Okay.
Upside down breathing.
Bingo. So Ian was a friend of mine in Northern California. I had just retired from a career as a marathoner. Didn't know what I was going to do. I was jonesing to like put my energy into something. Yeah. He said, you got to do this race over in Hawaii. I said, you're crazy. He eventually talked me into it. So that first year I trained with him on a, we all did, steel frame bike with rat trap pedals.
Yes, the whole thing.
We looked like we were finishing up a
paper
going to
route every week.
Exactly.
we're going on a tour around the country.
Yeah. So baskets on the back, the whole thing. So anyway, yeah. So 81 was my first experience, and then I came back in 82.
Got fourth.
And again, that 82 was that year. There were two that year.
You came to Julie Moss.
Yes, the February
6th
event, and it was a spectacular event. And then that was kind of it for me. I was like, okay, I need to maybe coach and write and do some other things, but my endurance days are over.
Well, but we're talking 2:18 marathon.
Yeah.
That's the real deal.
Well, it was in those days, but I had already spent a bunch of years doing marathons and beating myself up.
Right.
So by the time I started doing triathlons, and I did them for a couple of years, after that, but it was just, I was interested in getting on with the rest of my life and getting into business and doing some things there. So because I got so injured, and I learned a lot from that experience of being injured and the diet and everything that goes along with the training.
Yes.
I learned so much. I was able to literally parlay that into an entirely new career.
And so paleo diets was at the beginning of it?
Yes. So early days of paleo, and my brand was called the Primal Blueprint.
Yes.
I wrote books on ketogenic training. So it was really a new exploration away from focusing on carbo loading and carbohydrate management.
Which was what it was all about back then. Remember that carbo party on Thursday night? And
every time.
How many pierogies can you eat?
Right. Uncle Tim, yeah. So anyway, I had a career in between as an administrator with ITU and very much involved in the sport, even though I wasn't competing.
Well, and it's interesting. Doesn't happen very often where a sport starts in 74.
Yeah.
And within 20 years, it's been accepted into the Olympics, and it premieres in 2000.
Yeah. So that was the big hurdle and the big challenge that a number of us took on, starting in 1989 at Avignon, France, with the creation of the ITU. Yeah.
And one of the big issues for getting the Olympics was, as you and I have had many discussions, drafting.
Yeah.
Because our sport was not draft legal.
Right.
It was you had to have X amount of space between you and the other cyclists. And we had a race at Hilton Head, national championships for USTS, where after the race, the top three guys were disqualified. Top five were disqualified.
Lewis Murphy?
Murphy won.
Yes.
He was sixth place.
Yes.
The media had left.
Yes.
They had all their photos,
ESPN had filmed it in real time.
Yes. And they disqualified the top five guys.
Yeah.
And if you wanted to get into the Olympics, you couldn't have that type of crap going on.
No, exactly. So this was and that was 89. And so for the next 4 years, we had this debate about whether or not we should allow drafting in some of our events.
Right.
And I was the strong proponent of allowing it, to the chagrin of many of my cohorts and supporters, because I was the executive director of the U.S. Federation to start with. Then I was the Secretary General of the International Triathlon Union, and this was sort of the thing that nobody really wanted to take on as their sword to fall on.
Fall on the sword on. Let's change the sport so that the best cheater is going to be our Olympic champion, right?
I mean, that was one of the many comments made.
Yes.
But I mean, I think you look now. When you look back throughout history and you connect the dots, it all makes sense in retrospect. But at the time, it was such a
it didn't for a lot of us.
Yeah.
It was the being a drafter,
Yeah.
somebody who
Yes.
drafted
Oh,
here
my
in
God.
Kona was one step below
Yeah.
somebody who was a mass murderer.
Right.
Right?
Or, yeah. No, that's exactly right.
Yeah, and so everybody looked at our sport. What made it pure was we weren't cycling.
Yeah.
People weren't drafting on a bike. But in order to eliminate the officials
Yeah.
and all that crap that goes along with, oh, you're out of the race, you're out of the race. The Russian judge pushed him out of the race for drafting.
Yeah.
You had to get into the games. We had to make it draft legal.
Well, and it was a lot more complex than that because with the Olympic Games, we wanted a spectator-friendly event.
Yes.
And so in the days before that, when drafting was not allowed, you could go out, 20 miles and come back 20 miles on a road.
Right.
Now we wanted to have downtown event circuits where
Yes.
where 300,000 people could watch the event, and it looked great for coverage on TV. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, the Olympics is about television coverage. It's about
Absolutely.
eyeballs watching TV. So a lot of this had to be packaged in a way that was palatable to a viewer who had never seen triathlon before. So the trade-off was: are we going to stick to our guns and maybe not even get in the Olympic Games because of this weird thing where after the event is over,
somebody could be
gets
disqualified.
or during the event you have a sin bin where somebody has to sit out and
Yeah.
it just looks weird to the uninformed viewer. So we had to package the event that way. And then you say, well, by then the sport was getting so good that so many people were able to swim and get out of the, like 75 guys getting out of the water within 50 seconds of
And
each
especially when wetsuits came in.
other. Bingo. So now you've got 75 guys getting on their bikes, and they're supposed to sort themselves out with 2 bike lengths in between for the
Yeah.
next 40K. So it made sense in retrospect that, and we encourage drafting on the swim, and we sort of encourage it on the run, and we don't on the bike. So there were a lot of reasons. Anyway, that's history. It's all good now, and
But it was really funny because that was a big issue.
Yeah.
And when we got in, a lot of folks didn't really embrace it. A lot of people who were sort of
the
traditionalists.
U.S., my federation,
Your federation
was the leading
like
one. Yeah,
that
yeah.
they didn't want anything to do with it
Yeah.
because it was like, that is cheating.
Yeah.
If you're drafting, you're cheating. And not understanding that there's no way we're getting into games unless we eliminate the judging
Yeah.
aspect of it.
And then what happened, almost out of spite, the National Federation, of which I was no longer a member, didn't train their athletes in how to participate in this new concept. And so the U.S. did not do well in medaling for a number of Olympics.
Forever.
Yeah.
I mean, for the men's side,
Yeah.
we still haven't medaled.
Right.
Right. In the individual.
Olympics, yeah.
We've
Yeah.
got some medals in mixed relay, but we have
Right.
we've not had an individual guy
Right.
get a medal yet.
Right.
And so we were behind.
Yeah.
Watching the Olympics now,
Yeah.
and how when it premiered in Sydney and it opened the games, the women's triathlon was the first event of the
incredible.
games.
It was incredible,
right?
yes.
Crowds were huge. You must have been very proud.
Oh, extremely proud. Look, I mean, what went on behind the scenes to get into the games, and Les McDonald, who was the president of the federation, who was notorious for doing things, cutting the line and doing things that were not necessarily by the book.
Right.
But that's what we had to do in those days. And,
Right.
Juan Antonio Samaranch was the president of the IOC. He took a particular liking to our sport, and he would pull us aside and said, this is what you're going to have to do in order to, get to these new IOC members, to convince them to
Right.
vote on triathlon. So it was a big deal when that decision was made in '93 to be in the games.
And also, just you had to have X number of countries participating in the sport.
Yeah.
And did you guys have to go out and recruit countries?
Oh my God! It was every aspect of what it took for a fledgling international sports federation
Yeah.
to check off all the boxes. One of which was mass participation in many. So we went around the world setting up federations in Africa and getting the African National Olympic Committee and the Congress and Sam Ransamy and all of the and at the time we had sort of a fight between, not a fight, but power struggle between European triathlon,
Right.
which said we have 40 countries already participating in triathlon, so we should lead the way. Like for instance, FIFA thinks they should, lead in
soccer,
in soccer or UEFA, yeah. So anyway, it was very political and a lot of work being done to encourage companies to sponsor national federations in other countries, to encourage women to participate.
Yes.
Which was another major aspect of participation in the Olympic Games. Women had to be participating as well, Les was a strong proponent of women participation, not just in competing, but in admin, in the administration.
Well, and also you had, it was called, as ITU World Championships.
Yes.
You had an event in Australia called the World Triathlon Championship,
Yeah, we had
Barry Voviden's event.
Right.
Then you had Don Andrews up in Canada,
Yes.
who had his event that Les didn't like him. So there was a lot of
We had the World Triathlon Corporation.
there was a lawsuit for years.
Yes.
Where ITU was suing.
No,
Ironman
I
for
spent
putting
2 years negotiating with Alvin Chris over that. Remember Alvin?
Alvin Chris was with ITU,
Yes.
right?
No,
ITU,
no,
IOC. Right?
No, Alvin Chris was the lawyer that represented
Ironman.
David Voth and Yates. There was some
So a lot of money spent on
a lot of money spent, and we eventually figured it out. But there was again, the sport that started in '74, a lot of people claiming ownership of it.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So funny, and so obviously when you move from triathlon and you're doing your company.
Yeah.
And over the years, when you look back at Mark Sisson running, triathlon, all that type of stuff, the endurance.
Yes.
How have you changed? Because you've gone more strength, more flexibility. You're doing other stuff now than you did back then.
Yeah. So I weigh 25 pounds more, maybe 30 pounds some days.
Really?
More than when I competed.
Yes.
And
you're healthier.
I'm healthier, and we could have that whole discussion. Look, it's amazing that people compete at these endurance events
Right.
on a regular basis. I look more at the average person and how can the average person put on muscle, improve their VO2 max without beating themselves up so much.
Right.
So I have a new book coming out called Born to Walk, and the book is really
Great idea.
sort of an indictment of the running boom as having maybe been inappropriate for a lot of people who thought that it was the best thing they could do, when in fact walking at a lower level of aerobic output and then doing some weight training and some sprinting and mixing it up might have been the better choice if you're pursuing longevity and optimal health.
We had Dave McGilvery in here yesterday. 52 Bostons in a row.
Yes.
And hey, he goes, all of a sudden I've got heart issues.
Yeah.
And what he said, he says, I was very fit,
Yes.
but I wasn't healthy.
Well, that's almost all of us in this sport have that we're at the elite level, have that story. Very fit does not equate to very healthy. So,
Yes.
pretty much every elite athlete in the world is very fit.
Yes.
And not as healthy as they could be if they were pursuing a more rounded lifestyle. So to be the best, you really have to put it on the line.
Right.
A lot of the finishers here will tell you that was their life for the longest time, going to the well, and how many times you can do that. So, but a lot of us, I have heart issues. Greggy had heart issues.
Dave Scott just had
Tinley,
all the valves replaced.
Yes.
ST,
Yes.
2 days apart.
Yeah.
ST had his. And my mentality has been this: is our parents didn't have a resting heart rate of 40
No.
and a high heart rate of 170.
No.
We're the first generation.
Yes.
Of that.
Yes.
And the heart's going, what the hell's going on here? And the heart's freaking out.
Yeah. No. I would say you go to the gym, you say, well, I want to build biceps, and you go, I'm going to do some curls today.
Yeah.
Okay, now you take 4 days off before you do curls again because you want your muscle to. Well, if you're going to run every single day or ride hard every single day, the heart has to pump. It has to keep up. It's a demand organ. It has no sensation. So the heart goes, okay, I guess we're going to run again today and again today and again today. And I'm somebody who, I ran my heart to max 4 times a week for 30 years.
Yes.
There's a cost attached to that.
Yeah, you pay the consequences.
Yeah. So, I learned from that. So now much of what I do for the average person out there is, okay, here's how we're going to get fit and lean and happy and healthy and strong without all of the struggle and suffer and sacrifice and pain and all the stuff that goes with it. There's a happy medium. Now, you're not going to compete at Ironman doing that.
No.
But you'll be able to go enter your local turkey trot or 10K or whatever, or run to raise money for something. That's fine. But there's a big difference between being an elite, even an elite age grouper these days. My God, these guys are unbelievable.
Yeah, they're going sub. Yeah, they're going 750s.
Yeah.
They're going sub 8 hours. Yeah,
it's crazy.
It is nutty.
Yeah. So I've just I took a big step back when I got injured and I got sick from overtraining, and I said, okay, how can I optimize the rest of my life in terms of fitness and health, enjoyment of my time, my family, my kids,
Right.
all the things that go along with that.
We've got a group in San Diego, the Dead Runners Society, and they're all riding bikes.
Yes.
They ride mountain bike. And
Yeah.
the orthopedic reality is if you're a runner,
Yeah.
by the time you get to 50, you're not going faster than you were at 40.
No,
right?
No,
And
no more PRs.
Yeah, no more PRs. So that's when you really need to cross train and add swimming and add some cycling. And obviously, as you age, the strength component becomes even more important.
I mean, people will say right now that muscle mass and power and strength are the real determining factors of longevity and quality of life as you get older, right?
Yes.
So the aerobic capacity, they talk about VO2 max being also a metric, but your ability to run long distances and do nothing else does not serve you as you get older. You need to be able to climb stairs and lift bags to from the car to the house,
right?
Carry suitcases through airports and all that stuff, real life stuff, and then at the end of the day, not trip and fall in the middle of the night because you have no strength, no balance, and you break a hip, and that's the end of it, right?
So you're now health-wise.
I mean, I'm healthy. I'm going to be getting a hip replacement in the next 2 months because of all of the stuff that I did, and that again, our generation. We go back to running in the late 60s, your early 70s, but and running. I ran 100 miles a week for 7 years.
With basically cardboard shoes.
Exactly with minimal Thank you for saying that. Yeah.
They were
I mean, I look at the stuff now. The the Vaporflies
carbon
and all
plated.
oh my god.
Yeah, and the HOKAs are just wonderful. Yeah. I call HOKA is something that people can walk around in all day long.
Yeah. Well. And I would take exception to some of that. I mean, I make a minimalist shoe now. That's my new business. I make a minimalist shoe called Paluva, and our whole concept is you want to use the muscles of your feet. You want to feel the ground underneath. You want the brain to be informed by everything you walk on, whether it's cobblestones or potholes or divots or whatever, so the brain can organize the kinetic chain all the way up. So then when you put on your HOKAs or your Vaporflies and run a race, your feet are stronger, you're more mobile, more flexible, more resilient.
So your new book's coming out when?
January 7th. It's called Born to Walk. I think people are going to love it because it's going to give runners permission to walk again as part of their training.
You know what's fascinating about that? Ben Canute, one of the favorites here, his coach, who I think might be coming up next, Jim Vance, always when Ben does his long runs, there's little walk breaks in there.
Yes.
Because he feels that it's really important to use all the muscles in the feet and be able to not just be out there in just one pace. You want to do slow, you want to do fast, you want to mix it up.
You want to mix it up. And my buddy Tom Hodge here, he does UTMB.
Right.
He's been training in these shoes, in these thin, flexible shoes that have individual toe articulation as part of his training. He doesn't really run much in them, but he walks on he looks for every uneven surface he can find, because every time he takes a step on an uneven surface, without running, he's strengthening his foot. He's rolling the ankle. He's scrunching the arch. He's articulating the toes. And all of that contributes to foot strength, foot resilience, and foot health, so that when you do put on your running shoes, you're better for having done that.
So having been involved with triathlon from the beginning, does it blow you away where it's at now?
Oh, my God. Yeah. I mean, the times that everyone's putting in, I mean, the bikes. Look, we go back to 81, and John Howard won that year. And, steel frames, rat trap pedals. The clip-ons hadn't even been invented yet.
No, not till 86.
Aero bars, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And then my co-author, Brad Kearns, was the first guy to win a race on aero bars. You knew that,
yes,
right?
Desert Princess.
Bars. Yes, Desert Princess.
And they were all laughing at him. They were like, that looks like an irrigation system on the front of your bike.
Right.
And then he blew Molina and Tinley away at Desert Princess. And by the next race, they all had him.
Yeah, and then Greg LeMond had him in the Tour the next year.
89, a couple years. It's funny because cycling wouldn't get into that until the triathletes had been proving it for 3 years that it worked.
I know.
And Laurent Fignon would have won the Tour if he had used
of
bars.
course. No, that was one of the great moments in Tour history, I think. Yeah.
It's the best.
Yeah, so many things. I mean, just the hydration and the nutrition on the bike.
Yes.
I mean, the gels hadn't been invented yet.
Nothing.
So we were dried papaya and M&Ms.
I had peanut butter and guava sandwiches and Hawaiian sweetbread and Gatorade. That was it. We didn't know.
No, and
we
it worked.
No clue.
Yeah.
It worked
and then there was a fear of underhydrating.
Yes.
Like one year they were going to weigh you at different.
We got weighed in 1980. Yeah.
Yeah. And they pulled you if you lost more than 4 or 5% of your body weight. So in countering that, I drank like 30 bottles of Exceed on the course, and I actually that year 81, it was Scott Tinley, Dave Scott, Jeff Tinley, and me. I was in third place for a while until I had to stop to piss on the road, and it took me 4 minutes to.
You had so much friggin' fluid.
So much. I'd been drinking so much fluid, my belly was out here. So
we didn't know. We were guinea pigs.
No, but it was. Look again. We were the guinea pigs that allowed this sort of human performance to take place.
I love it,
Yeah.
Mark. It's such a treat to get to talk with you again.
Yeah, likewise.
It's been way too many years.
No kidding. Thanks, Bob.
Mark Sisson has been our guest. Everybody, Pancho Man, take us out.
There's a ukulele in my coffee, excuse me, waiter. But there's a ukulele in my coffee, I do declare. Cause it's breakfast with Bob. Cheers.
Pancho Man.